Welcome to the Growth Hacking Culture Podcast. Are you a business leader or HR professional who's ever felt like you are throwing money at leadership coaching with uncertain results? You are definitely not alone. According to an industry report, up to 70% of organizations struggle to effectively measure the ROI of their leadership development initiatives. This disconnect leaves many companies feeling like they have invested in a solution without a clear problem, or worse, a problem without a tangible outcome. The market is saturated with coaching providers, and the challenge isn't just finding a coach, it is knowing how to select the right approach for your specific business and ensuring that it delivers measurable and lasting impact. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on why some coaching works and why so much of it falls short. We are going to explore the science, implementation pitfalls, and the key questions you should be asking to ensure that your coaching investment pays off. And to guide us, we have a true expert in the field. My guest today is Andrea Caldwell, a leader at Franklin Covey. Who doesn't know Franklin Covey, by the way? A global leader in performance improvement. With her deep expertise in corporate leadership and human behaviors, she has seen what truly moves the needle and what simply leaves a taste of waste of time. We are going to be diving into what differentiates a great coaching provider, the common challenges in implementation, and even the future role of AI in this space. So if you want to stop guessing and start getting real results for your coaching, you are in the right place. Let's get started. Andrea, wonderful to have you with me. I have so many questions.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Selfishly, I love this topic. I think it's really a good one. And because I know the impact that coaching can have, I think it is important that, your listeners understand what constitutes good coaching. So thank you.
Exactly. Now let's go into the root cause of the solution or the problem. So there is a lot of people who sees coaching as a soft skill, but in the latest years we have seen more and more of science with the increase the spread of neuroscience to understand more a little bit more about this psychological and behavioral principle that makes leadership coaching effective. According to you, what are some of these key principles that you have that you know about coaching, how it that affects our brain and how it really makes us become more effective?
Yeah, you're so right. The reason that most organizations engage in coaching, or individuals engage in coaching, is because of a behavior change. And it is rooted in neuroscience. We do have the ability to create new neural pathways and to change and to think differently when we expand, our scope and we expand our thinking. So you're right, it's grounded in neuroscience and behavioral psychology and habit formation. So people change when they feel psychologically safe,
Mm.
when they have small wins, when they get regular feedback, when there's a regular feedback loop. So all of those things are really important. And the behavioral principle behind all of this, that change that you want people to have, it really has to be intrinsically motivated. It's not going to really come from external pressures. So coaching is one of those things that helps people get to that intrinsic motivation. It's really less about telling people what to do and more about asking them the questions that guide them to the insights that allow them to rewire how they think and how they act over time. So it really does help leaders build resilience. I thank you for your question. I think that's really great.
You know, Andrea, you made me think about something that happens very often in corporate is that if you are underperforming, then they will tell you, go to that coach. And when you mention this intrinsic motivation, so how is this person going to feel I'm being punished? I'm going to the coach because I'm underperforming. And it has nothing to do with their own decision. So the intrinsic motivation is almost not there. And this is what makes sometimes the coaching program fail because the person has been imposed, right?
100%. Oh my goodness. That's exactly one of the biggest reasons why it fails is because it's positioned as punitive. So you're not performing, go see a coach. Well, that's not the type of coach that we're talking about here, and type of coaching we're talking about. That's really more performance coaching, and really their leader is responsible for helping coach their performance. There's been some specific goals set, and they're not meeting those goals, or they're not meeting the standard or whatever. That's a little bit different. Here we're talking about, we're talking about their growth, we're talking about their development, we're talking about broadening someone's impact that they can have on their team, on their organization, on the strategic goals that the company has. So it's a little bit different. So that's one of the misses is they say, oh, they're not performing, give them a coach. No, you're gonna, you're starting out of the wrong, in the wrong place, and it's not going to have the impact. Then they come back and they say, oh, it wasn't effective. Well, yeah, of course it wasn't. We didn't go about this the right way.
So the key takeaway here is that the objective of a coaching program should be well defined. So why are we having coaching for whom, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes corporates miss that part. They think that coaching can be the solution to improvement or can be the solution in order to accelerate growth, but it is not always that clear. And the other thing that is not always clear is about this famous ROI of coaching. One, I have seen several calculations of ROI of coaching or any leadership development program, and sometimes we are in Disneyland. It is completely invented with full of data, and people do not know. And when I say people, back in my corporate days, I wanted also to calculate the ROI, and it was difficult. It was almost impossible, I would say. I think I failed if I have to be sincere. So can you share some success stories that demonstrate that there is a tangible ROI of coaching, like improvements in productivity, employee engagement, or retention? Is there some hardcore data that people can rely on in order to say, that's the way I should be looking at coaching because brings me something to my company?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on something you said because I think it starts with, if you're familiar with Franklin Covey, you're familiar with the seven habits in particular, we know that habit two is begin with the end in mind. And I think the same principle applies here when it comes to coaching. You have to start out by asking the question, what do we want to accomplish here? Is it transformation? Is it skill? What is it that we're trying to do? Because then you can set some clear metrics up front. You'll know what you're going to measure, because usually in this space measurement comes from from surveys or from looking at accomplishments of whatever standards have been put in place. So studies that have been done by the International Coaching Federation and other organizations see anywhere from a 400 to 800% return on investment on the dollars that are spent in coaching. And so, as you mentioned, that comes in productivity. It comes from expanding skills. It comes from navigating challenges with confidence. Right now, organizations are dealing with a lot of disruption. So, how leaders handle change and disruption, all of those things can be measured. And so, it's not a soft skill. A lot of people think, oh, coaching, this is just soft, this is just fluffy and feel good stuff. No, this is how you have impact on the organization when you are able to have effective coaching with leaders, and you do see that return on investment. There was a study done by an organization that reported a 60% improvement in productivity after coaching. Gallup also reported a 59% lower turnover when there's highly engaged teams. So there was study, there's research behind this. It's not just, hey, we feel great, we lock arms and sing and dance. No, it really has an impact.
But the thing is that the reason why people sometimes coaching fails, it is because we are picking the wrong partner, the partner who doesn't know this link between there is the brain, there is something that has certain principles on the way why we take certain decisions, including the decision to make a change, and that you need to have someone who understands this, how the brain processes change in order to nudge the right way. Because at the end, I don't like so much the word coach, but more about the like a nudger, somebody who's nudging you in the direction that you have picked, who is going to be motivating you and making you understand all the path that the options that you have in front of you, when in fact it's super difficult to do it alone. When we are alone, we think about one or two options, the most obvious one, and sometimes we pick the wrong one just because with this we is too much effort, or is bringing us a fake reassurance about that we are going to become more happy if we take a single direction. So failure comes sometimes that on picking the wrong partner, the one who doesn't understand that this correlation between brain, action, and outcomes for the business. Because if we have somebody who did an ICF certificate and maybe in 30 days and doesn't have any understanding of either the brain or the human psychology or the business outcomes, then we are talking about a good friend. We are not talking about a good coach.
Yeah, yeah. There's a reason, at Franklin Covey, we have a 97% success rate with our coaching, with our executive coaching, which is nearly double the industry standard, which is 50%. And the reason that we have that 97% success rate is exactly what you just said. It's the quality of our coaches. So yes, they have certifications from an accredited, coaching organization or outlet, but they also understand the neuroscience. They also come with industry experience. So most of our coaches, and it's not, the case everywhere, but most of our coaches have come from the business. So maybe they were a former executive or a CEO or SVP or, frontline leader or what have you. So they have that real life experience too, to really be able to connect and understand some of the challenges that someone's experiencing. But our real goal here too is also, it's not a tell. It's really to ask the right questions. And that's what a really good coach can do. They can ask the right questions that can lead someone to those insights. The other thing that I think is really important too, when someone is picking a coach to align with an organization, is what their coaching methodology is. Is it a proven methodology, that they use? Because again, that's what separates it from just being your friend that just finished a couple, classes and is like, hey, let me coach you.
Now, let's move a little bit the blame to corporates and on the way they implement a program. They get challenges. What are the obstacles that you have seen in order to be successful to implement a good coaching program? What have you seen, like some mistakes, challenges that they have implementing a coaching program?
Yeah. Let me give you a few stats that go with this question. One of the things that we found is that when coaching is paired with a learning experience, so maybe they've gone through some type of a learning session or something like that, and then it's bolstered with coaching, we find that implementation is up by 400%.
Hmm.
And when it's paired with behavioral change goals, specific goals, we find that coaching accelerates adoption up to 4 times faster. So that's one area where we can have obstacles where it can fail when not having, when it's not tied with additional reinforcement and sustainment, or it's not supporting that. But also when there's no executive sponsorship in an organization. So when you have that leadership team that feels like, okay, that's not important. Like we could talk about soft skills, and that's that soft, mushy stuff. I don't have time for that. That's one way that it can fail, because the messages that they might unintentionally be communicating is, yeah, I'm paying for it. It's a check the box. It's not important. They're not modeling what they want to see. Time constraints can also be an obstacle. So the manager seeing this as something extra instead of something that can be integrated into their flow of work, into what they're doing every day. And again, if it's not tied to business goals, it can sometimes stall as well. So sometimes, for example, we've had organizations that are going through major culture transformations. And so the coaching that they're taking their leaders through are tied to that goal, and everybody knows why they're going through this and what they want the outcome to be and what they're going to see at the other end of it. That's one of the things that have helped organizations that we've seen do that, tie it to business outcomes or objectives. One of the ways we've seen them be successful.
Something that I truly believe is this idea that, especially when you are training people to have new behaviors, any meta skill that they will need in order to go through a transformation that you need, it needs to be supported by somebody who is going to help you apply what you learn. And that's why training alone doesn't really work, because you cannot learn with slides. There is numbers that show that only 11% of people who attend a training alone will be applying anything in the next 2 months. So that's pretty low. It's almost like 90% of the people were there for nothing. And I truly believe that you need to have a system in order to help people create new routines to apply it. And coaching is one of the solutions. But the problem with coaching is that you need to have an army of coaches. And now the question is, that has a cost. Today we have technology. Is there something that we can do in order in order to support this habit creation after you learn something, in order to decrease this? I mean, we still need somehow the human in the middle, but for the accountability part, in order to follow that you are doing the right thing, a human cannot be following you all the time. So I think that the role of the coach is going to be more like an orchestrator, but less into did you do it or not. For that, we have now technology. What's your thought about the use of technology, specifically about AI, in order to accompany the change?
Yeah. I 100% agree with what you're saying. Technology, specifically AI, is a tool. It's not a replacement, but it's a tool that when humans know how to use it effectively, can absolutely have major impact. So when we talk about the space of coaching, you
Yeah.
know, technology AI is great for skill practice. It's a low stakes practice partner. So
Mm,
say, for example, you talked about before, not just training alone. I think of it like a funnel. When you go through the training, that's more of the broad, picture. Then when you narrow in and have coaching, you're narrowing into this individual and what specifically is the skill gap or what specifically do they need to work on. Then you have the AI, maybe an AI coach or something like that, that could be a partner. So if we use navigating difficult conversations as an example, which is one of our newer content areas, um, if a leader wants to practice having a difficult conversation, AI is a low stakes practice partner.
mm,
Have that conversation, let it give you feedback. It's an opportunity to practice skills. It's a resource for development efforts. So maybe it can help you find additional resources that speak to your specific learning objectives. It also can give you feedback, it can track skills. So I think there's absolutely a place for AI. And I think some of our best coaches are factoring and working that into how they
mm.
operate, factoring in technology.
Uh, there has been several reports that show that one of the main use of AI today, it is to trust AI and talk about the personal challenges that you have today. And I was wondering, so is it also one of the challenges for coaching practices? It is that sometimes, I mean, they don't know how to keep their secrets correctly, because if we have this facility to trust the AI bot to ask questions, it's because we don't trust the people, the coaches, or even our bosses to say, "Hey, I'm having a bad day and with this at work." And so I wonder if this is not also one of the challenges, is that some coaching providers may be the ones transmitting information that they shouldn't be to the ones paying them indirectly, saying, like, intervening in, what do you think about this? Is he ready for the next move? Asking this innocent question, and they answer to human resources or to whoever paid them in the corporation. Does it happen, Andrea?
Yeah, I will tell you, it's not the way that we operate because this is within Franklin Covey. We view coaching as confidential and it's about that individual. Now,
Mm,
with our executive coaching, we do set up in the very beginning executive sponsors. So usually that person's leader, maybe somebody from human resources or whatever, and they together, establish what this individual's goals are. So the individual might share what their goals are. There may be check-in meetings along the way, but there's already guidelines for what's being shared.
Mm.
And it's really up to the individual whether or not they share additional detail. So, as the example, if they've done an individual assessment, like a Hogan assessment or something like
Yeah.
that, that's not shared with anybody but the individual. The coach might walk them through it. It's on that individual if they want to share it or if they want to share portions of it. But you're absolutely right. Trust is paramount in a coach and a coachee relationship. And if that trust isn't there,
Mm.
if that trust is breached, it absolutely has an impact. And you're right. That's why somebody might reach out for AI. And the problem with that, with eliminating a human, is that AI can be biased because it's only going to be as good as the information that you give it when it comes to context and things like that. It's getting just your perspective sometimes when you're asking certain questions. So you're right. I could see where that would happen maybe within organizations, but I can tell you with us, we're very keen on that. We have, companies that will come back and say, okay, well, tell me what you talked about with this person and what do they need to improve? And we're like, and sometimes they get upset with us, but we're okay taking that heat because we're like, no, that's not, we told you up front, that's not how this is going to run. You know?
You mentioned, Andrea, something that is quite uh, interesting is that you say AI can be biased. We humans are super biased.
Yeah.
If we look at what is going on in social media, the beliefs of what people believes, it is completely crazy. And by the way, I realized that also a couple of years ago that I was super biased, and that would be something that would prevent me to be a good coach. And I decided not to go into that area because I know that I'm judgmental and that I think about things constantly. I cannot give up.
Yeah.
And I sometimes do have to say transfers like it means that if somebody's sad, I feel sad for that person that you cannot believe. So AI is biased because we humans are biased. That's the representation. I
Yeah, how
want
you ask your questions to AI matters because you may ask it in a slanted way and it's going to give you a slanted answer. So you have to know
also
how to
that
use it.
one,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
indeed. Now you mentioned it somehow a little bit before when we were talking about the challenges of implementation of coaching, that role modeling plays a big role into the success of a coaching program. Um, do you think that the company culture in general, because role modeling is part of the DNA of the culture, so do you think that company culture has a big influence in the success of a coaching program, and it can even destroy it? Like it could be super uh, a super waste of money because if the systemic problems are constantly there in the company, people are not enabled to change. In fact, they're going to be punished if they change.
100%. 100%. Absolutely. And we talked about before that also, one of the biggest mistakes that organizations can make can be positioning it as punitive, right? And causing
Yeah.
it to be seen as something for poor performers. But other things that I've seen in cultures, I was coaching an executive team, so presidents and senior vice presidents and what have you. And one of the things I learned in listening to them, they were actually doing group coaching. And something that I learned was something in their culture that causes them not to change was what somebody on in that group called the firefighter. I think he called it firefighter syndrome. So in their culture, what happens is people see that something like there's a train wreck about to happen, and they don't say anything about it because then when it happens, they get to be the hero. They get to come in and save the day and be the hero with the problem, with the solving of the problem and everything else. And it's funny because after that person said it, everybody else was like, yep, exactly. So because of that culture, some of the things that people would work on in coaching, like speaking up and courage and things like that, wouldn't necessarily be rewarded.
No?
So you're absolutely right that culture can have a direct impact on success of individuals or group coaching efforts.
Now, when we try to select the right coaching approach, and by the way, I still cannot believe that there is so many senior people in corporate who mix coach with advisor, consultant, mentor. It's incredible. Coaching has been there forever. What the hell? They still cannot understand the concept of I'm not going to tell you what to do, but they are
Yes,
all
yes,
expecting, tell me, please.
yes.
Um, how should a corporate leader evaluate this different type of offering? Some people say, so some supplier will come and say, I'm ICF certified. This is the type of coaching that I do. Then another one uses another certification. And by the way, nobody understands the differentiation between the different certifications that there are, or the methodology, or the type of coaching that can be effective for a given challenge in a corporation. How would you structure that? What would you recommend to a person picking up the right solution? How
Yeah.
on how to do it?
Yeah, I think we've talked about some of it already. I think first is looking for to partner with somebody that has a proven methodology, not just the individual that they have charisma and they're exciting and how they talk and all that stuff, but are they following a proven methodology that they've had success with? And we talked about the coaches themselves. What kind of experience and background do they have? Are they certified in a methodology that's going to be most impactful for our organization? So, like you said, we're not talking about an advisor here or a consultant. We are talking about somebody that can suspend some of that personal bias and can help guide people to insights. I do know how to ask appropriate questions. Is there scalability there? Are they able to support the size of your organization? You know, it's very different to support an organization where there's maybe 10 people. If you have 100 people that need to go through coaching, is there scalability? Is something else to consider as well. How do they measure success? What is some of the data, some of the metrics? Do they track outcomes and not just the number of sessions held? But are they doing some, creating some baselines and then following up and measuring on the back end? And then, of course, the cultural fit. Does their approach line with your organization's values, or just a few things I would say to look for?
Hmm. When you say proven methodology, I mean, a business person doesn't know anything about methodologies. We don't even know about the different certifications that there are. So we don't know if it is something invented that if ICF means Indonesia Coaching
Yeah, yeah,
Federation.
yeah,
So we don't know this type of thing. So how can we decide if we don't know all the methodologies? Is there any hints
yeah,
about effectiveness of the different methodologies?
yeah, yeah. I think you'll see if you look at different coaching models, even though they use different words, you'll see that most of them follow a similar path.
Mm,
And the first one is about aligning objectives. That's got to happen up front. Then you've got to evaluate the needs. So gather the data to uncover what the skill gaps are. So whether it's through assessment or other things. And then you coach the behaviors.
mm,
Then after that, you work on sustaining results. So most coaching, whether they use different words or not, kind of follow a similar path. And so while an organization may not be steeped in understanding what different coaching methodologies are, when we say at Franklin Covey that we have a 97% success rate, and they ask how is that methodology? Following this process over and over again is how we get the feedback that we get that we've been successful. And so that would be one of the things that I would ask when I'm working with an organization. If they say that's their methodology, maybe you need references to talk to. Maybe you need to understand if they're giving you throwing out a data point or a stat. Okay, well, what led to that? We're able to connect the two.
mm. Do you think that there is an impact on the frequency of coaching? Let me explain you my personal how do you say my personal experience. When I used to have a coach, and this coach, we had a meetings every 2 weeks or something like that. I
Mm-hmm.
used to think about what we agreed in the previous session only 2 days before the next session. And then I felt horrible because, in fact, I had 2 weeks to do what I committed to, and and I was doing it in the last moment. So should coaching be a little bit more frequent instead of having once per week just because you are traveling all the time because you're a senior person or whatsoever? Should it be close? The sessions should be closer, more frequent. What is your thoughts about that?
Well, first, I would say give yourself a little grace because in those 2 days prior, what you were probably doing was thinking about your previous 2 weeks. Even though you waited to the last minute to think about it, you weren't thinking about that day. You were thinking about all the behaviors and things you engaged in over the previous 2 weeks. So it wasn't that you never thought about it. So I don't think it was a bad thing. Two every couple of weeks is about the standard, and I think that's about right. I think depending on what it is that you're trying to coach. Good coaches are also available to their coachee. So if something happens and they
Mm.
need to have a quick conversation, I know my coach, I can reach out to her whenever I need to and say, hey, you know what? I need to talk through this and practice this. I can reach at any time, but our frequency was also every couple of weeks. I think that's effective. Still, not that every week wouldn't couldn't happen, but I think if you really want to make sure that everybody the individuals that are being coached also have work that they're doing, right? So you don't want to be disruptive to the flow of work either. But you can be flexible in that, but I don't think it's bad to have it every few weeks.
Mm.
Or
Okay. I, I'm also thinking about the sophistication that has come in the last years to coaching. Every big provider of coaching, the serious ones at least, have evolved. I have checked also, Stephen, your company's, the coffee company, also doing things with technology. And then I'm thinking about these guys. I remember 4 or 5 years ago, they received VC money, like millions and millions of dollars, better up one of your competitors. And I was thinking, so it has become a little bit more complex. But what I don't know is that when we compare results with somebody who has millions and millions of dollars backed by venture capitalists and the company who has grown organically because of a vision of a founder like yours, if it's really a competitive edge or not, or it's just makeup, these beautifully designed apps with some graphics about where you are and at, at at the same level a la better up, or is it something the more traditional way is as effective as this tech coaching approach? What is your
yeah,
thought?
I love that you asked that question, and it kind of relates to what we talked about before. What we're finding is that everything is not apples to apples. So what I mean by that is we might say executive coaching, and we
Mm,
talk to an organization and they say, oh, yeah, so and so does executive coaching. And then
mm,
when we look at what they're calling executive coaching, we're like, that's not executive coaching. We have different levels of coaching. We have group coaching, we have leadership coaching, we have executive coaching. And what they're offering is not what we have found yields the best result in executive level leadership. It's not what they need when you have somebody whose responsibility is transforming a division or an entire organization, or oversight rather, for a division or organization. Their needs are a little bit different than maybe somebody that's on the front line. So what we're
mm.
finding, and another kind of to go back to when you talked about evaluating organizations, is make sure that what you're hearing is apples to apples. Don't just say they do executive coaching, they do executive coaching. Ask questions and compare the two, and you'll find in some cases it's not the same. It's not the same, and it's not going to yield the same result.
That's totally right, in fact. And the cool thing is today, instead of Googling page by page, we can ask either ChatGPT or Gemini or whatsoever to do a comparison of what X is calling executive coaching, Y is doing, what is the definition for another supplier. It has become a little bit better to compare things.
Yeah.
for comparisons, I always jump to any Gen AI to have a, but you have to ask the right questions. What is executive coaching for this person and compared to the other person in order to understand what could be the value, and Andrea. Andrea, tell me, what is the best way for people to reach you out to if they have questions? Let me also understand correctly. So I know that you have been in the coaching area, but you are also now in the consulting area. Is that
Yes, so
right?
I
Did
lead
I
our
understand
coaching
correctly?
and consulting teams. Yes.
Oh, okay. How do you, what is the key differentiator that you are doing? Is it something that is all sometimes coupled, the coaching with the consulting, organizing the systemic problems of a company together with the individual growth?
Yeah, and I know when we say consultant, it's such a broad term. And that's another reason why we say people use the word differently, right? And to really understand, when we talk about our consultants, we are talking about our folks that facilitate our content. And so the consulting piece of it is to work with organizations to understand how to best tailor that content for their organization and to help them achieve the outcomes that they're looking for. So our folks are surrounded. So say, for example, trust is an issue or isn't in an organization. We might have one of our consultants deliver our leading at the speed of trust content, but the consulting comes in not just letting it be off the shelf here, more let me understand you better, what's going on, why do you feel you have this trust problem, what are you seeing, and then kind of tailoring the content to meet their need, and then the ongoing reinforcement that goes with that. So I just wanted to kind of couch, when I say consultant, they're not just coming in cold and saying let me consult for your organization. It's really tied around specific objectives that the company has.
Andrea, how can people reach you out for questions? Is there what is the best way to reach you out?
Yeah. So for me personally, if you want to reach out to me, LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn under Andrea Caldwell 03 on LinkedIn. If you want to reach out and get more information on the organization, our offerings, coaching, consulting, delivery days, facilitation, all of that, and even our upcoming offerings, we're really integrating AI a lot more into what we're doing. We have a new writing for results course that has an AI component. We have a working with AI coming up soon. So if you want to find out and kind of keep a pulse on everything that's coming up and new, our website, franklincovey.com, is a great place to go to, as well as connecting with us at Franklin Covey on LinkedIn as well.
That I'm going to put all this information below this episode. Andrea, it was really lovely to spend time with you and learn how to pick the right supplier and what are the things that we should avoid doing when implementing a coaching program in the corporate world. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Eva, thank you so much. I appreciate being with you today. Thank you.